We better get back, because it'll be dark soon, and they mostly come at night. Mostly.
Welcome to Mostly Horror.
Mostly.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Sean.
And we're back with another episode. This one, I think we said in our episode with Francis Galuppi that we may have another episode related to The Last Stop in Yuma County. And this one's it. Yes, we hinted at it.
Hints.
Last week was I Saw the TV Glow episode, which I hope you all enjoyed. But we're back with some more Last Stop in Yuma County. And not just that. We're back with Jim Cummings. I have wanted to get Jim on our show for quite some time. Huge fan of his work. Thunder Road, The Wolf of Snow Hollow, The Beta Test. He is just a poster boy for independent filmmaking, and I've been following him for a long time and absolutely love his work. And he just happens to be one of the leads in The Last Stop in Yuma County. So very excited for that conversation, which is great.
Yeah, you've been singing Jim's song for a long time. I mentioned that in the interview, but some of our earlier episodes, you're probably like, I just watched The Wolf of Snow Hollow, and it was fucking
he is
awesome.
just so good. He is a very specific type of person. He's very funny, very specific brand of humor, and also just a great writer and director and mind, it seems like. But another fun thing about this episode is that we are going to break down a new movie that we've talked about before. If you're a listener of the show, a frequent listener, you'll know that we've talked about the new Strangers Chapter 1 film coming out for quite some time. We've been talking about just the fact that it's coming out and our thoughts on it. So Sean and I both saw it, and we're going to break it down after the end. We're not going to let it get in the way of our Jim Cummings interview, but we're going to talk about it a bit after the interview. So if you want to hear our thoughts on the Strangers Chapter 1, definitely stick around for that. Before that, though, let's get into some things that you probably already know.
I'm sure you already knew that.
You only tell me stuff I already know.
You already know what I'm going to tell you.
And the first one, Sean, I don't know what you're doing this summer, but I know what you did last summer is coming back to the big screen. We finally have a date for the release of the, I don't know if it's gonna be, it's a legacy sequel, like it's just like the Scream that came back, Scream 5 technically. But it's coming July 18th 2025, which is only about a year away, which is kind of crazy. It is potentially Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. are returning. We don't really know a ton, but I'm assuming that it's going to be the same vein of what they did with Scream. Bring it back.
I'm down. Like you said, we talked about it a little bit before. We don't even have like other casting things. We just know that they might be returning.
I don't know a lot about it.
I'm not seeing much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is I know what you did last summer completely followed like the fire and the trends that were set by Scream in the first place,
Yeah.
So it makes sense to revisit this now. I wonder how, that franchise isn't as like meta aware horror commenty as Scream is, but I wonder if they're going to bring elements of that into it this time. Not to like mimic Scream, but I just wonder what their approach is going to be revisiting it now.
Yeah,
knowing that they were
the
inspired.
TV series too.
Yeah, which I never. We remember because we heard about it and then it came out and like no one said anything, no one left a note. So never got around to it. I feel like in preparation for this, I kind of want to check it out though. If I remember correctly, I wasn't hearing like amazing things, but I would like to go in like educated.
Yeah,
and who knows? Maybe there's stuff in there that's worthwhile. Maybe the whole thing's great, and I just don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It could be like the Scream TV show that came out on like MTV that a lot of people loved and that, no one talks about still. Another thing that's getting rebooted or brought back to life is Silent Hill. We broke down some new Silent Hill stuff a while back, but Return to Silent Hill is having it is coming out. It is a new film adaptation of Silent Hill 2. And not only that, we get a look at Pyramid Head.
Yes.
Did you saw Pyramid Head? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It looks great.
Yeah. I'm just kind of confused because it looks weird to me.
Looks weird.
Yeah. Like, it doesn't look right.
Huh.
I don't know if that makes sense. Like, it looks like it's like from a video game, kind of.
Well, I mean, that's plot twist.
I guess
this is a video game. No. I guess I can see what you mean. I think he looks great. I'm looking at the image right now, and some of the like wall texture stuff feels more like a set to me than I want. But the original movie, while amazing, I love that movie, does not have like perfect CGI,
no, not at all,
and like set to CGI compositing. It has a lot
like
of
an
really
action
great...
figure. Like, this looks like a pyramid. Like, if you're looking at it, looks like zoom in a little bit. It looks like a pyramid head action figure.
I think part of it is the texture and like veins and stuff that you're seeing on the eyes or on the arms. It literally looks like his arms could be bending. I get what you're saying. But I have faith because Christoph Gans, the original, the director of the first one, is returning. I remember we did an episode where we talked about this huge Silent Hill announcement, and and I don't know, I just trust him. I love the first one so much, despite the bad CGI and compositing, that I just can't imagine them dropping the ball so hard on that to me.
Like, I would say this director is not really known for like making a bunch of hits, so we'll just see what happens is all I'm gonna say.
Sure. I actually don't know off the top of my head. I don't know any of his other work. I just know that I fucking love the first movie.
It's
so
fine. That's fine.
I don't know. I'm in. Pyramid Head is just objectively cool. I'm happy to see him again. Welcome back.
Agreed.
Let's do it.
And in some original news, we're going to talk with Jim Cummings a bit about remakes and stuff. So it's good that we're talking about remakes a little here. But in some original news, Vinegar Syndrome, the boutique Blu-ray label, is releasing their first ever original production called 8 Eyes. It's a retro. This is from Bloody Disgusting. It's a retro nightmare co-produced by Not the Funeral Home, which is the team behind The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs. The synopsis is: a mysterious local crashes a couple's vacation through the former Yugoslavia, pulling them deeper into his web of psychic rituals. A mysterious local... Oh, it just repeats it twice.
Oh.
that must be a little mess up there. But it's supposed to be a callback to like retro 1970s exploitation sort of vibe, like horror exploitation sort of vibes. So it looks funky. Kind of excited for that. I also just like Vinegar Syndrome as a company and what they choose to release. So I think it's cool that they're doing this.
You were just talking about them briefly with Francis when we had him on.
Yes.
You brought them up briefly. So this is their first movie. They're starting like a production.
Yes, so they're a boutique label. They did this set that has Poison for the Fairies
nice.
That I got. They
which is so sick.
It's super cool. They own a place in Connecticut, in Bridgeport, Connecticut, called The Archive. And it is a physical media store that they own, and they have a shit ton of boutique labels there that they sell, and then new and pre-owned music and films. But it's also where they like scan like film, like they, for like Poison for the Fairies, they like get the film, the actual film, and scan it 4K. And it's fucking insane. So they're doing the Lord's work, and it's cool to see them doing original productions. They obviously have like a specific feel to their shit.
100%. Maybe we can talk to someone from 8 Eyes. Maybe we can talk to someone from them specifically. And cool. I was about to say it could be a 2-parter. We could have them both on. Who knows? I know that I'm looking at the poster for 8 Eyes right now. This is my first time hearing about it. I'm loving the poster. I'm loving the things that you're telling me. So it's still a bit early to know like how I feel, but I'm currently intrigued. Approaching excitement, maybe.
Yep. Agreed. So. Yeah, I think it's cool. I don't know if this is based off of a short. I don't think so. I think it's just finally getting its release. I know it's had some like international screenings. So
okay. Well,
it's
gonna get an Us screening.
Yes. In other original news, let's see. You want robots or you want animals?
Robots.
All right. So unfortunately, when we talk to Radio Silence, at the end, I was like, I'm so excited for what you guys have coming up. Escape from New York. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. They are no longer doing Escape from New York.
Fuck.
But
Why?
their
Text
newest
Matt.
project is called The Robots Go Crazy, and it stars Andy Samberg. So I'm happy that they're dabbling even more in a comedy space. This won't be horror, I'm sure, but they obviously that is, they're good at both things. They're good at the horror stuff, they're good at the comedy stuff. So I'm excited to see them lean a little bit in one particular way, which is the comedy avenue. Obviously, they've done like their first film, Devil's Due, was like very much leaning towards, and even VHS is leaning towards horror. And so this one's going to be leaning full comedy.
Sure. Yeah, I'm down. I wonder how they're gonna, use robots to blow people up into splats of blood in this film. No,
They will have. I'm sure they'll have blood cannons if they can.
I'm definitely excited. Love Andy Samberg. Haven't seen him in something in a minute.
He's in this one movie that Nick. It's Jake Fisher. What's Jake
Johnson?
Nick.
Jake
Johnson.
Yeah,
Jake Johnson has a movie on Hulu. It's not that great. It's him and Anna Kendrick. But Andy Samberg plays himself in it. And he's, I don't know, he's just funny. Andy Samberg's just great.
Love Andy Samberg. I'm definitely excited. I'm curious to see what this is going to be. I'm bummed that they're not doing Escape from New York. I hope that, so is Escape from New York still happening, or do we not know?
I don't know. I'm sure that there was like a press from release.
Okay.
A press from release. Escape from New York press from release. I'm sure that there was a press release about it, but
Sure.
All I saw is that they weren't going to be a part of it anymore. I'm
Okay.
trying to see. Yeah, that's a requel. 3 days ago. Shooby dooby doo. Shooby doo. Yeah, so this says Radio Silence exits Escape from New York reboot. They're no longer involved with the project. Someone asked if they're still doing it. They said, we're not, unfortunately. I think titles like that bounce around for a while, and I think they've tried to get that out of the blocks, like starting blocks, a few times. I think it's just ultimately a tricky rights issue thing. There's a clock on it, and we just weren't in a position to make the clock ultimately. So I'm assuming that there are people trying to get the rights to produce it, but Radio Silence just keeps taking on more projects, and so it would have to fall in, their open windows.
That makes sense.
I think they're maybe just not officially attached to anything, but who knows? I think that they're still interested based on this article, so maybe things will work out and they'll jump back on.
Sure. It's an interesting movie to revisit in general anyway. Yeah. It's kind of very reflective of the time period that it was made, as are many things, but I always thought it was an interesting remake, but figured that I'd be very curious to see their swing at it. Not sure how I'd feel about just anyone swinging at it. You know, so I don't know. I'm cool. I'm down for robots and Andy Samberg. Let's see what happens.
Exactly. And, shout out to Radio Sounds for kind of breaking out of the current mold of films that they're making, I guess.
Sure.
Just based off of Abigail, which I enjoyed, but
get a little weird.
Lastly, have you watched Fallout yet?
No, dude. No, right. I need
to. I just beat Fallout 4 the other night. I enjoy Fallout a lot, partially because Ella Pernell, who is also in Yellow Jackets, is really good as the lead. I believe her name's Lucy in Fallout. She's just booked a role in the upcoming horror comedy The Scurry, which what do you think The Scurry is about with that title, Sean?
Scurry. Immediately I'm hearing SpongeBob scurvy, but I'm imagining some sort of rodent or insect scurrying about. I imagine a bug or rats in some sort of infestation kind of movie. What is it?
Well, the film follows two pest controllers called to a country park cafe to investigate a routine vermin problem, only for an avalanche of deranged squirrels to descend at nightfall, wreaking mayhem on the staff and visitors in the park. So it's a squirrel movie. It's a horror comedy with squirrels.
Hold up. Either we talked about this already, or I had it pulled up one day to bring up to you and was going. It was one of the ones like we talked about a bunch of stuff and I didn't get to it.
Were you going to talk about that, or were you going to talk about Hundreds of Beavers?
I don't know anything about Hundreds of Beavers. Give me 1 second. We're going to come right back to that. But I remember that I was going to tell you about the Pooh universe thing before we ever talked about it. And I had Scurry. I had both of those pulled up. What is Hundred of Beavers? You got to.
Okay. So, Scurry is Scurry. We're done talking about Scurry.
Sure.
Hundreds of Beavers is this film that word of mouth has taken over Twitter, at least that I've seen. It's a slapstick comedy inspired by like 1920s and 1930s slapstick comedies. I'm pretty sure it's black and white. But basically, one of the writers is also the lead, and it stars him as an applejack maker in a conflict with beavers trying to win the hand of a merchant's daughter. But basically, it's just a bunch of people dressed in beaver, like everything I've seen is just like people dressed in beaver costumes. It looks absolutely insane and goofy. But I don't know. I think it's also like a silent movie. I really don't know. But I've heard people talking about Hundreds of Beavers, and has made me interested in it. So
I'm hearing that it's people in beaver costumes. Definitely, like, to me, that is the most compelling part.
Yes, you should.
Really quick,
you should look it up when you have a second.
You said Applejack maker, and I'm like, are Applejacks things other than the cereal Applejacks?
Well, they have to base off of something, right? It's a
that's why I was like,
moonshine. Applejacks is a moonshine.
Oh, dude, moonshine will get you. 1 second. So 100 beavers. What's it called?
Hundreds of beavers. Guys, you're hearing it here live. Beavers. We're looking up Hundreds of Beavers. Do it with us.
This is happening right now.
Up. It's also made almost $400,000.
Well, hold up. Because I'm seeing something that says Hundreds of Beavers, a 22 action comedy from 2022.
Maybe if it's a black and white thing. If it's a black and white thing of beavers, people in beaver costumes, that's what it is. And it may be premiered in 2020 at a festival somewhere, but it is not wide release. It is released for viewing this year.
There's new hype around it and stuff.
Yes.
I didn't know if it was another like Speak No Evil situation where
No.
there is a ton. If you type in Hundreds of Beavers and you hit Google Image, you are bombarded with images that has me. I'm in. Yeah. I'm 100% in.
Also, the poster is so good. Like, whoever made the actual poster it's absolutely 10 out of 10. Like,
agreed.
Yeah. Anyways, didn't think we were going to talk about Hundreds of Beavers, but here we are. There's no clean segue, but Jim Cummings is not a beaver. He is a person. He's the lead, one of the leads in The Last Stop in Yuma County, directed by Francis Galuppi. He has an amazing film called Thunder Road, Wolf of Snow Hollow beta test. You got to check those out. Any final thoughts before we get them over to our conversation with Jim?
It was really cool to talk to Jim. You have turned me into quite the Jim Cummings fan.
Yeah.
Love Last Stop, love Snow Hollow, love Thunder Road.
So good.
You have definitely converted me, and I'm always really excited for the ones where like you're kind of cheesing, you're geeking. You were very excited. And Jim, he, like you said, I can't think of the term that you've used, but just like the poster boy for indie filmmaking. Yeah. He has a lot of great insight. I love his honesty. Like, he expresses some of his frustrations, and he kind of gives you it's
very open.
And the duality of things. He's like, on one hand, I feel this way about things, and on the other hand, I feel this way about things. And I really appreciate that. I think it's a great conversation. If you guys have not watched any of his movies, highly, highly recommend, especially going into this. And don't just think, well, I haven't seen him, skip it. Absolutely give him a watch and check this out. It's a good conversation.
On that note, we will get you guys over to our conversation with Jim Cummings, but also stick around for our thoughts on The Strangers, Chapter 1. All right, we are joined today by Jim Cummings. Jim is a filmmaker and man of many hats, writing, directing, and starring in the wonderful films Thunder Road, The Wolf of Snow Hollow, and The Beta Test. He's also played roles in many franchises and films, from Barry, Dave, Halloween Kills, and more. His newest role is as a traveling knife salesman in The Last Stop in Yuma County. Jim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're very excited. I know I mentioned this right before we started recording. I've been a big fan for a long time. Really excited to chat with you. Was excited about this film as well. We talked to Francis a couple days ago, so excited to jump into that. I do want to say, when I was Googling originally the cast of The Last Stop in Yuma County, I noticed that it pulls up another Jim Cummings that is rightfully also well known, the voice of Winnie the Pooh. Have you been confused for Jim at all? Can you do a Winnie the Pooh impression? I just like
honestly, I'm shocked that you guys didn't. I thought that's why you guys had me on, because I was doing it too. Normally podcasts do that. No, ever since I was a kid, he's been one of the top voice actors in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, he does Winnie the Pooh. He did Darkwing Duck. Like, I had so many kids in my grade school be like, "Are you the voice of Darkwing Duck?" I had to say, "No, I'm not. I'm not. I don't do a very good Winnie the Pooh, and he is such an eclectic list of characters that he's able to pull off. But he's in everything. He's Princess and the Frog. But the problem, it's funny when you do it this way. It's like when we won Sundance for Thunder Road, all the press showed these pictures of this 65-year-old guy on the red carpet, and then all of my friends ended up sharing those articles rather than the ones that actually made, with friends like these who needs enemies. But it's a bit more sinister when you go through the other Jim Cummings things on iTunes, and it says movies you might also like. And it's like, if you're watching Princess and the Frog, it's like, you might like 15 cameras. And it's like just violent murder. Yeah. These poor children are watching movies and be like, oh, let me see what this is all about.
Yeah, that's the problem with AI and name recognition. It's just going to throw that shit together. So
yeah, we need a human. We need a human doing that. Yeah, yes. At the very least.
That's so funny, and a repercussion I never would have thought of. Speaking of 15 cameras and horror, obviously our show's called Mostly Horror. It's a great tangent.
Yep.
Or a great segue. We want to at least talk about horror a little bit. We'll talk about that with some of your films, but we like to ask all of our guests what their intro to the genre is. And it's not necessarily the first movie that you saw in a theater, but that first moment where you snuck out into the living room and saw something behind the couch that you shouldn't have seen, or you opened a book and saw a picture that scared you, or a story. Or like, do you remember kind of those first moments that maybe sparked your curiosity or love for the genre?
I remember watching really frightening movies. We had HBO as a family, and my dad liked boxing, and so we were like, why? So we had HBO, and I remember watching movies like The Woman in White, which really terrified me as a kid. It's a good kind of killer movie. It's really frightening. The whistling reveal is really, really good. That always scared me. There was all these Halloween movies. My birthday's Halloween, and so I watched spooky movies religiously. And then I remember I was about 12 or 13. And there is this family, the Lautner family. My buddy Nick was in my grade, and then his sister Elizabeth was 1 year younger. And she goes, "Have you seen The Shining? We own The Shining. Have you seen it?" And I went, "Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary stuff." And I hadn't seen it. I lied my ass off. But we put it on because, like, oh yeah, I've already seen it. It's fine. And I remember being really uncomfortable and frightened by that, where I was like, "This is adult. This is not for me." And that was a big one I remember watching. And then really it took me watching Rosemary's Baby in high school to really appreciate that it is also a riddle. It's something that you are making for an audience that is unexpected, that is for a media literate crowd and not just a slasher genre. So seeing Rosemary's Baby, and I watched it 1,000 times. I mean, that movie...
It's a favorite.
John Cassavetes in that is so good and so muted and awful and sinister, and the Castavets are just so much fun. Ruth Gordon is so good. I quote that movie accidentally so much of I seem to have overfilled the glasses. Like, there's so many things that are so rich about humanity in that film, and then it becomes about Satanism. And it's really good, and it's all of these small kind of Norman Rockwell characters of the witches, that it's not it's horror in daylight, as Ari Aster says. That was really the big one for me, was watching Rosemary's Baby and thinking you can make something that rewards a media literate, attentive crowd. If they're paying attention, there's so much setup and payoff in this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Rosemary's Baby is one of my absolute favorites. I have to ask, since you brought it up, did you hear about the prequel that they're doing, and do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, I can't wait! It's great, a reboot. Oh, wonderful!
Yeah.
I can't wait. Great. Yeah.
That's
in a world of reboots. Yeah, we were talking about
great
how I think it's possible to do something there, like focusing on the cult, but I don't know that I trust that it'll be handled the way that I want. And it's definitely not something that needs to be touched by any means.
I love that with some stuff like Avatar: Last Airbender. It's like, you got to bring back the original creators. If they're not on board, it doesn't count. It doesn't count. It's like, we got to bring back Roman Polanski. If he's not on, it doesn't count. Just do something original. Do something original.
Agreed.
Like, it's not that fucking hard. It's crazy. It's crazy that Jordan Peele is like the only people that are doing, things that are original. And then everybody celebrates originality. Talk to me. There's like, Barbarian, Smile, all these things that are like original. We don't need IP. You don't need to do the thing because of the name recognition. The thing that won Best Picture, Everything Everywhere, it doesn't have. It's so ridiculous to me. I don't get it. So I don't think I'm going to be first in line for whatever the reboot is. I'm sorry.
Totally fair.
That's okay. We're going to put your clip whenever we talk about a reboot coming out in our news. We're just going to use that clip.
Jim Cummings saying, "Oh, fucking great." So I literally, and I will never ever talk shit about the Wachowskis. I will never do that. But I watched The Matrix 4, and I immediately bought a T-shirt that says "Just watch the original." Because I thought it was not necessarily about The Matrix 4, but it was about just reboots of like, it's okay to just watch the original. That's why you love it. That's like, it's because it's so good. The first Matrix is so good. It's okay to just rewatch it. Crazy.
Yeah. Agreed. Absolutely. Well, you said that nobody's making original stuff. Certainly not true with you. You're making all sorts of original content. Only original content. We have all sorts of stuff that we want to talk about, a lot of your films, but I'd like to start with Thunder Road, if that's okay. Specifically, the balancing act that you have between comedy and tragedy with all of your work, but especially in Thunder Road. I've said many times on the show that when it comes to horror and darker dramas and comedic elements, I don't always love when the food touches on my plate. I think a lot of approaches to comedy sort of undercuts the seriousness of what's happening in the narrative, or, at best, like, are these obligatory tension releasing moments. But you have this way of mixing it and running them right alongside, and in the same breath will have me laughing at what a character is going through and how they're experiencing pain, and then before they've even finished their sentence will have me sinking in my stomach. So I'm just curious if you could elaborate on that balancing act and kind of your very unique approach to it.
Yeah, dude. Thank you for that. I had good influences. I grew up watching Alan Partridge and David Brent and, all of these cringe comedy people, Sacha Baron Cohen, and sometimes third rail comedy people, Christopher Morris. I had like good influences and bad influences. And then Pixar. Like, I really love what Pixar does of wielding comedy and tragedy. Particularly in Inside Out. There's a big scene, Bing Bong's big scene in Inside Out is so good as a setup and payoff where they're not going to make it. And he says, I got a good feeling about this one. And then he commits suicide in a Disney film, and you're crying your eyes out. And it's like, it's so insane. It's so the self-sacrifice, like it's Seven Samurai in the middle of this animated movie. And then at the end of it, she goes, "See you later, Bing Bong." And it's the dumbest name for a character ever. And you're like, oh yeah, this is an animated film. That kind of filmmaking to wield an audience's emotion like a prescription was the thing that clicked me into doing stuff. I had this renaissance after watching that film. And I realized that you could do that. You could make something. So there's photographs of me on the Thunder Road set with an iPad and headphones watching that scene before going up to do it. So I would do it in between takes because the music is so rich, the performances are so rich, the setup and payoff. It's humanity. It's just this this thing that you do for the people that you love to get the thing. It's everything that is cinema to me. To transmute the human experience of love and life and legacy into a film. That was the core of the filmmaking of Thunder Road. And then also it's cringe comedy. It's just watching somebody perform and flail in public. And that's really funny. And then to do the small, dumb human stuff is incredibly important to wield the audience. Because you can do the heavy stuff. It's really easy to talk about how sad and difficult life is. And it's very easy to do the slapstick stuff. But there's a moment in the Thunder Road feature. It's all one shot from a moving car moving up to me, and I'm saying, "What do you want? When you pull me over? I'm sober. And it's like, "Hey, pick up your phone." This cop is like, "Pick up your phone," and I go, "What's going on? I've been drinking." And then I go to the car, and I'm trying to realize I locked myself out of my car. My phone's in my car. What's going on? And he goes, "Oh, they're trying to get in touch with you." And I go, "You don't know? Why don't you pull me over if you don't know?" And so I'm freaking out. This illiterate who's like not able to know what's going on, and he breaks the window to his car, and he pulls the phone out, and he goes, "It's dead. It's dead. The battery life on these things. Do you believe it?" And it's this dumb thing about technology of just like trying to have relatability of like, isn't that crazy? It's like battery life on these damn things. It's so. You have to do it out loud a million times to know how to wield that and if it's going to work. And it works. You just do it a bunch. And like even down to the pantomime bit of like, he and I were, I'm trying, do you have a stick on you? Can I use the stick to break the window? And he pulls it out and we purposely have him drop it. And then he drops it and I go down to pick it up. And then we look at each other really close to each other's faces as they come up. And it's like, it's a clown act. It's like, it's such a stupid thing. Jordan and I rehearsed it a bunch of times in the parking lot of like, how do we get this thing to work? Because the audience is going to be laughing. It's not just drama. It's not Manchester by the Sea. It's a parody of Manchester by the Sea with Steve Coogan's kind of performance styles. You kind of have to do it on its feet to make sure that it's working and film it a bunch and rehearse it a bunch. And then when it really does work, it has nothing to do with the script. It's just doing it until it's good.
And the context of that scene too, outside of like that's talking about the marriage of the comedy and tragedy. Like we didn't even mention the actual context of that scene.
What it leads to,
kind of makes it funnier.
It's about death. My wife has died, and someone had been overdosed, and then it's like your daughter's friend. Is she okay? What is going on? And then but the whole time, that there's tension. That's like the thing that is held in the air for the audience, and so they're invested to this thing. So then when you incorporate stupid bullshit into it, they're like, all right, just get to the point. Like, what is happening here? It's that there is something that I learned from the Thunder Road short that then we transitioned into the feature with, where audiences just want to see a character be okay. Where it's like if somebody's going through hell, they just want to see a win. And we prevent that from happening over and over and over again until the very end of the film. And at the very end of the film, when he finally gets something right, and he's like, learned a lesson from his grandfather, taking his mother to the ballet. He takes his daughter to the ballet. He doesn't realize this legacy transition that is so important to his family until the audience realizes it.
No, I agree, and I think that moment is like pure catharsis for that reason. You're not really allowed catharsis the entire movie. It's like catharsis blue balls, I guess, if you will. And then at the end, it's like pure catharsis.
And then by the end, it plays the Skinny Love song, and it's just absolutely, you cannot. There have been times where we'll screen the feature, and I'm standing in the aisles, waiting for the movie to end to go up to do a Q&A or something, and there'll be people running out of the theater crying. It's like if you watch this thing for 90 minutes of this guy not being able to connect with humanity, and then he finally does, it's overwhelming. In watching it with crowds, there are times where I'm like, oh, why did I make it so sad? I don't know if I'll ever do something that sad ever again.
Oh no, do it. It was beautifully devastating. I found it to be just a wonderful, everything that you just talked about comedy. It just feels like, just watching all of your stuff, it feels like an ongoing conversation about the absurdity about humanity and the life we live and the things we have to go through, and just like dealing with those moments. Sorry, there's so many things I could say. It's truly amazing. I loved it.
I almost use it as a litmus test for friends to see if they're human, because I like show my girlfriend, show some of my best friends, and if they don't cry at the end like I did, then
there's something
wrong with them. It's like Ex Machina. He should have just shown Alicia Vikander Thunder Road. I'm curious with Thunder Road. I've heard Nick Cage talk about how this film has inspired him, and obviously, you're, for lack of a better term, you're kind of like the poster boy of independent filmmaking, and that's one of the reasons I have been following you for so long. I'm curious, has Bruce ever watched this movie? Do you know anything if Bruce has watched it?
It's very strange. So you make movies and you put it out and you have no idea who's watching it. And then people will reach out to you in the middle of the night and say, "Oh, I love it." You wake up to voicemails from heroes. Bruce has seen it. Bruce and his family watched it. Let's see, we've been in the Christmas break of 2018.
Nice.
And he'd seen the short, and he gave permission for us to use the song in the short after we stole the thing and didn't, after we were basically pirates and using his song in the short film. And then with the feature, we didn't use the song because the last take was better, and we did the alt eulogy. And then when the time came, we reached out and we didn't hear back. And then I started to get a DM from Patty Scialfa, his partner, and it just said, "So, ... And it was midnight, my time. And I couldn't sleep. You could just see the 3 dots of like something else was being written by Bruce Springsteen's wife. And I was like, what is this going to be? What is this going to be? And so I'm sitting there watching for 20 minutes until she finished the paragraph. And she said, "We watched it as a family. We loved it. It's so good. We missed the song in the thing, but we just wanted to say it's so human and so lovely. And thank you so much for making this thing. We all loved it so much." And now they're good friends, the good pen pals.
Wow.
It is funny where you think by breaking the rules, you're going to get into trouble. And really, Bruce is an artist. He's been struggling. He's had times where nobody will listen to him. He's got to make the thing that he cares about. And the movie's very earnest. It is very much in the tradition of his stuff, soulful. And so he got it and has been a good pen pal ever since.
That is amazing.
Yeah, that's great to hear. To move on to your next feature, The Wolf of Snow Hollow, which definitely put you in front of a lot of genre fans specifically that may not have known of you before. I'm curious what felt like the right time to make your foray into the genre. Obviously, like, this is a true crime detective film, but it's about a werewolf. So I'm curious what made you feel like the werewolf movie it was now time to do this.
Yeah, so I had written it before I had written Thunder Road. I got paid to write a web series, and I really wanted to do this one. It was my idea, and I was like, "Oh, this could be very good." And I wrote it, and then couldn't get it greenlit. And so it was only after making the Thunder Road feature and getting that into South by Southwest and winning, and then getting the feature into Cannes, that people were like, "Hey, what's going on with that werewolf project? That could be cool." And I knew it was very good. It was very, very good. But it's not something that I decided to do, like this would be the next great thing for us. It's really whatever you can get made. Like, at that point, my team had been working so much for favors, and we'd get them on to do commercials to get them paychecks and stuff. But really, it was like, oh, this is like Thunder Road. It's a father-daughter story, but it has a werewolf in it. And I get to pretend to be David Fincher and do the Zodiac-style killings. So really, it was much more necessity being the mother of invention than anything else. It was that thing got made because there were people who are interested in financing genre stuff, and Orion Pictures was down. So it very quickly became my next film, and not like a heavy decision. There were other scripts that we could have done, but this one got greenlit, and so we went and did it.
Nice. Sometimes things just work out like that, which is great.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely love it. I want to talk a little bit about the werewolf costume. I have to say, Steve mentioned that he was a fan earlier. I have to elaborate on that and say that Steve has been screaming your name from the rooftops a little bit since 2018, maybe even a little in his sleep since 2018. And
that was after the beta test, but
your poor girlfriend.
But he Clockwork Oranged me with Snow Hollow, which was unnecessary. I'm always down for a werewolf movie, but he's passionate. But he Clockwork Oranged me watching this movie, and I just loved the take on the werewolf in the film. And I guess we're being spoilery, but you really leaned into, you know, guy in a wolf costume. But I'm just curious if you could talk about the ways that you guys went about the werewolf through the shots.
Yeah, it's very difficult when you're making a werewolf movie to not have it feel like it's a dude in a dog costume. And you realize that when you're starting to shoot, where every angle looks stupid. And so a lot of it was just trying to make it look less dumb. And that's just normal. In talking to people that do creature features, it's like, you know, sometimes there's like 2 angles that you can get, and really hiding the shark is so important for that stuff of like blurring, as people are constantly wanting to see more of the thing. Yeah. And if we don't have the budget to make it look incredible, and for this film particularly, it was important for it to not look incredible because of the ending. So we tried our best in some baller shots, like that wide one of him chasing Hannah after he rips her arm off. Where they were like, oh, we need to see more of it. It's like, oh, you should take that shot out. That's what the studio said. Like, we should really hide the shark because it works well in Jaws. And I was like, well, ours is kind of the opposite because it's not a real shark. So the point is to show it early on and make the audience believe that it is real. So it's a reveal at the end. So like the hiding the shark analogy doesn't really work for this film. And it was funny. There was like some stuff where this guy Michael is incredible in his team, and Lauren Wilde, my good friend, who does these incredible head designs of monsters. She came in to do the head. Michael built the kind of lycra suit that was able to fit Will, and Will Madden, my good buddy's younger brother, who's the actor who plays Paul Carnery in the film. Was actually in the outfit the whole time. So there's no stunt before. It was actually Will in every scene, which was really great to build the rapport of what it's like to actually want to do this, or to be killing these victims. So he was able to carry that into his performance at the end of the film. Yeah, I really loved doing it. I would love to do another monster film because ours is not a monster film. It's a reveal. But I can talk about it now. It's an historical piece of work. I hope it's not a spoiler. But those of you who don't know what I'm talking about should go and see the film because it's quite good.
Yeah.
Yes. We'll make sure that everyone watches this. Especially Wolf of Snow Hollow. That one. Yes. I mean, a lot of your films I think are more easily accessible now, which is awesome. I do want to talk about the beta test. You're kind of switching from genre to genre with Thunder Road to Wolf of Snow Hollow. The beta test is this thriller that I really can't even describe. You really have to see it to be able to fully describe it. And I'm curious to also loop in your upcoming Tribeca short, Is Now a Good Time, which sure. I have no context other than your Instagram post about. Yes, this is about what you think it is. Your poster is a Marvel-esque poster. And the beta test, you talk a lot about the relationship between WGA and talent agencies, and I honestly learned a lot about it, even just like researching exactly what you were talking about. I'm curious your approach as an independent filmmaker, flipping off the powers that be, so to speak, or at least not being afraid of the big bad wolf. When you're making these pieces, knowing that, you know, you also are at the point now where you have this cachet, you have an audience, and you know that your message is going to get across to people. I'm just really curious your approach and not being afraid of that sort of stuff. Yeah, my messaging has changed about it a bit. So I met Christopher Nolan a couple of times over the last 2 years, and he's a really nice guy. He's a really big supporter. I think he saw Wolf of Snow Hollow on an airplane and then reached out. He's a very, very good friend. He and Emma, and he changed my life because there are times when I think about being honest, and there are times where I realize it's so important to be kind and talk about things. So my Christopher Nolan answer to your question would be, I make comedy. And comedy is often about power dynamics and subverting power dynamics and being the court jester and doing the thing. But then my real answer is fuck them. Burn the whole thing down. Yes. And when you're making stuff and you're an independent filmmaker,
these people often become these awful gatekeepers that never make movies, that just talk about making movies, that are salaried, that end up taking so much time on purpose so that they can make more money in their salary than making anything. They don't know how to make movies. So really, I hate to say it, but the Jim Cummings answer is like, everybody is frightened to talk about these things, even though it's in Variety every day about the WGA packaging fight, that it was going to change the landscape of how everything was going to be owned by these giant agencies if they were able to produce content and screw over creatives. And then as soon as they didn't, everything changed. The landscape changed. 4 of my 6 agents left the agency of WME to go and start their own production companies or something else, because they realized they weren't going to be able to make money through packaging or through producing fees. And so everything changed, and everybody was pretending like it wasn't happening. And the same thing is happening right now with the mergers, with the recession of these giant tech companies that are no longer financing and competing with each other to make giant numbers of movies. Now it is just this glut of things, and AI is taking over, where literally people are losing jobs very quietly and slowly, but there's this giant degradation of, you get on Reddit, to the filmmaking subreddit, and people are like, is anybody working? And it's like, that is a sign that things are changing, and we're pretending like it isn't happening. So I don't know. Part of me wants to be good-spirited and say, I make comedies, and this is about comedy, this is funny. And then the other side is like, well, no, this is actually affecting creatives' lives, and I am the court jester. I should be doing this. I am free and public. I am not owned by anybody. I have no shareholders. I have my own production company. We should be able to make jokes about real things that are happening, and so I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and honestly, like, the court jesters are normally making fun of the king, and the king's just laughing at the farce nature of it. So I think that's it's a great comparison. I will say, Sean and I are both in New York, and we'll try to make it to Tribeca. Would love to see your short, and very excited for whatever that is going to entail.
Do you know what it's about?
I've seen the Marvel poster.
Okay,
is what we got.
It's based on a couple of true stories. So they'll send out people with Pelican cases, PR reps, Pelican cases with a laptop, and they'll show a movie to someone for Make-A-Wish Foundation thing. So if somebody does a petition online, and they're like, I'm dying of a wasting disease, I would love to see the second Thor movie before I die. Then they'll send somebody out with a Pelican case to show the movie. Denis Villeneuve just did that for Dune 2. It happens. It's a very common request, and people do it. And most of the headlines that you see say that Marvel sent somebody out to show off the movie, and everybody's response is, what a beautiful corporation. What a wonderful thing that they do. And they never think about this traumatized kid with a Pelican case that has to go into to hospice to show off one of the worst fucking movies of all time. And then in the middle of the movie, it's 3 hours and 45 minutes. That's how long this new Captain America movie is that we're showing to this kid. And he dies because it's so long. And then I am traumatized by it. And so the film is about really showing good movies and not bad movies. And the first question that the kid asks, I bring in the laptop, and I'm trying to say, hey, how are you ready to join the Marvel universe? And I'm like showing him the laptop, and he leans over to his mom, and he whispers something to the mom, and the mom turns to me and goes, are there any gay characters in it? And I go, what's that? She goes, are they gay? And I go, no, not in this one. It's difficult with China.
Jesus Christ, Jim.
I'm so excited. It is that thing. It is the thing of like, well, it's incredibly earnest, incredibly well researched. This stuff happens, but it's also very funny. Like it's funny because we are all pretending like these things don't happen, or that they're not an important part of the industry that we're in. So just do it. Yeah, I don't know. It took us a day and a half to shoot, and I'm so glad that we did it. And I'm going to send it to all my famous people. Like, they're going to protect me. I'm going to send it to Bill Hader, send it to Alfonso Cuarón, be like, hey, insulate me, please.
Right. Oh, that's so good.
Wow. Oh, I love that approach. I guess while we're on independent filmmaking, this is a great segue, a lot of good segues here, to Last Stop. I mentioned we talked to Francis a couple days ago. It was a pleasure to chat with him, to meet him and chat with him. And really excited about his Evil Dead movie, which we could go into a ton. But the story of how Last Stop was made, he talks about it a bit. And then the fact I realized between that interview and this one, there's a mini doc being created about, Sell Your House, the movie.
A feature doc. It is a feature doc. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
about
it's
how
basically 2 movies that we've made. Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. A doc about how, one of the producers had to sell his house to get this feature made. And it's a great story. I'm curious. Did you know Francis before this? It seems like you guys have a really close connection now, and you are both, he made his first feature, and before it's even released, he's on this Evil Dead movie. So another great example of just making the fucking movie and reaping the benefits.
Yeah, it's becoming. So I didn't know Francis before this. And James Clays, who's my local boogeyman, did to sell his house to be able to finance it. That never happens. And also, it never happens, and then it's a great movie. And so, like, we are in the very center of the Venn diagram of success in the film industry. But then I hadn't met Francis. Francis sent me the script, and I thought it was really good, but I didn't know if it was going to be funny. I thought it could be very austere, kind of like Bruce Willis, bag of money, running the desert film. And then he came over and we talked about South Park for like 3 hours. And I was like, oh, this guy and I are just basically great friends. And then in meeting him, there's no way to not be good friends with him. He's a very lovely cinephile. And you could spend days with the guy just talking about movies. I have. It was a very unconventional way of how it got made. And then I think people have really taken to that the movie is so impressive in how it is made, just how it's crafted through Francis's vision and writing, that it's getting a lot of attention. And of course, it's gotten Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell's attention. And now he's off and running doing an Evil Dead film, which is so ridiculous.
Yeah, we cannot wait for it. You might have actually just answered it with the South Park bit, but he told us to ask you about the first time meeting and getting coffee.
Christ!
He wanted us to ask you about that story.
Alex rubs that shit in. So he, I was like, yeah, come on, we'll have coffee. And then I guess for the next week, he was like, so what does that mean? Does that mean that I should bring coffee? Is he going to have coffee? So he's like over-analyzing these text messages and with his wife and his buddy Scott. And then Scott's like, no. He's going to get a coffee. Like, he says, we'll have coffee. He's at his house. He's going to have coffee. Don't worry about it. And then he came, we sat in the backyard, and I didn't offer him any coffee, and I just drank coffee by myself. And I'm such an idiot. And so it's basically something that he wields to show off how just unsupportive I was to Francis in his first meeting with me.
That is so amazing. Funny. That is so funny. I guess at the risk of being spoilery, I want to talk about an explosion.
You can talk about it in the trailer. It's true. It's in the trailer. So we don't need to necessarily set the stage of when this happens, but there's a huge explosion in this film. You are the closest one to it. And it's very real. It looks very real. I can only assume. Walk us through what it's like shooting that sort of thing. I'm assuming that's the only time that you've done something that level of stunty. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
What's that like?
I get to. Oh, it's great. You get to feel like Jackie Chan or like Arnold Schwarzenegger or something. It's so strange. It happens, and it's real explosion. Like, obviously, like it looks incredibly real. But it's frightening because you do all the prep, and then you've been acting in this thing for a month, and then you realize it's the last shot that we're going to get in the movie. And the reason that they've scheduled it to be the last shot is because in case you get blown up, they still have the rest of the footage from the film. So
it's just logistics, Jim.
Yeah. Right. You're there, and you're the closest person to the explosion, and they're like, it's safe. It's totally safe. We're just going to stand about 2 football fields distances over here. You just take it easy. We have fire extinguishers ready. We're going to be coming over here quick. You get lit up. And then you're never ready for it. You think you are. You do all the planning. You only have one take to get it, so you can't mess it up. And so you do the rehearsals. You're there, and the whole town showed up. So like somehow it leaked, and everybody in this small town came and set up fold-out chairs to watch this big thing go off. Like local cops, like there's so many people in this little amphitheater of this little dead river, and I'm going, yeah, be fine. Make sure you have those fire extinguishers. Yeah, you got them. Okay, great. And then they do it, and you think, okay, I'm gonna act. I'm gonna hit these marks, do the thing, and then there's a concussion, so it like takes the wind out of you. It unfills your lungs, and so you stand up, and you still have to do the bit as if you're not affected by it. all of this heat coming behind you. It's wild, and it's a lot of fun. It now is gonna end up in the history books of a cool big explosion at the end of this film. But yeah, you never expect it to be as big. And then we got it, and I'm covered in dust and ash and fake blood. And Francis runs up to hug me, and I'm like, no, hold on, dude, just wait, get a towel or something. I'm covered in shit. But it was really funny. It was so celebratory. Everybody cheered and clapped. It was really, really fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
It looks great, and
yes.
I'm glad that the one take ended up how you wanted. Well, Jim, we got you for a little under 10 minutes. What I would like to do, because you pop up, for lack of a better term, in a lot of these bigger things that I wasn't expecting when I went into them. I listed them at the beginning: Dave, Barry, Halloween Kills. What I want to do is feed you a couple of those things and some specific questions to them. And I want to start off with Dave. Who do you think is the best rapper who's also an actor, or like hip hop artist who's also an actor?
Oh, Eminem, no question. 8 Mile's fucking
From
great.
8 Mile?
Eight
that's
Mile's
fair.
Fucking great. He's also in The Interview, the Seth Rogen movie, and he's very good in that. I think he is. Eminem has such an understanding of where an audience is going to be. He has a great sensibility of how he seems. Just in his music, he's a big risk taker. He doesn't care about humiliating himself. He's okay with Sacha Baron Cohen's ass landing in his face and then leaving. He's really, really good in 8 Mile. He's very earnest, and then that last rap battle is very, very self-deprecating, very, very good. And then I don't know a wordsmith as good as him. That period between 95 and 2005, let's call it, was just an incredible decade of putting words together that otherwise you'd never imagine would work. He was incredible talent. Yeah,
and Sean and I are both from Michigan, so we take that with pride as well. With Barry, Sean hasn't seen Barry, so I want to do my best to avoid any spoilers. Can you just speak on Barry as one of, in my opinion, and I'm curious your thoughts, one of the best modern TV shows? Like I just would love your thoughts on what Bill Hader did with that series.
Yeah, Barry's interesting. So as an insider, as a buddy of the guy, he is such a cinephile from Tulsa, just a dude who grew up loving movies. He's also Stefan. He's also like an incredible impressionist and the guy on SNL. But I know Bill as a Southern dude who really loves craftsmanship and doing weird stuff with movies. And, you see him in like the Criterion Channel interviews, and he's one of the most eloquent people talking about movies from back in the day and what inspired him. Jacques Tati, you see so many of those, comedy craftsmanship filmmakers that are in Barry. And it was a big risk. Like, at that time, doing a comedy about a hitman that is also incredibly cinematic, like that Ronnie Lilly episode in season 2 is like an Alfonso Cuarón film in its like world cinematography. And it was really difficult to do. Like he was constantly fighting to try and make sure that it was one shot. And then it wins all the trophies. And then the people that he pitched it to originally that turned it down, the next season after Barry's success, were saying stuff like, "Oh, well, yeah, we're actually looking for our Barry. We're looking for our version of Barry." And he's like, "Motherfucker, you could have had it," and it didn't. Really funny. But no, Barry is this really wild third rail graphic comedy with a bunch of really wonderful performers in the comedy space that shouldn't be as good as it is. It has no business being as well made as it is, and that comes from the top down.
Yeah, and at only half an hour, it's like rare that mix of things is able to happen in its time frame. The one other thing is Halloween Kills. You're in a flashback of effectively scene or scenes to branch off of that. Really cool to see that you were born on Halloween, which is interesting. Off the cuff, favorite and least favorite Halloween films?
Oh man, you're gonna get me into trouble.
Yeah, you're gonna get chastised by anybody, I'm sure. There's no right answer, obviously.
Season of the Witch is really fun. Let's see. First one's really good. 78's really good. It's like obviously also the highest grossing independent film of all time at that moment, and really took the giallo horror stuff that was happening, slasher stuff that was happening in Italy and all over, and then turned it into American teenagers, and then independent filmmakers have been killing American teenagers ever since. I think that's a really good one. Also, just the anamorphic it feels, like the smoking pot in a car driving around. It feels like of the moment. I'd probably say 78. The original's really fun. And then no comment on my least favorite.
That's
That's a tough one. That's a tough one because I just know how much work goes into all of them, and I wouldn't want to disparage like all of the different decision makers that go in and take time away from their families to make stuff. It's a tough thing to do. But I'm really glad I was in Halloween Kills. I think I did. I think I'm one of the better parts of that movie. The fact that David Levy interjects some comedy of coming through the house, and I go, "There's a dead dog in here," and then Thomas Mann goes, "What's that?" And I go, "Nothing." And I keep walking. It's like I didn't want to spook him out, and also I'm a little spooked. Like it's really funny. Yeah, David Green is such an earnest and lovely human. And I grew up watching All the Real Girls, and he was one of the big influences for me to realize that Southern kids can make movies. And so, like, I watched All the Real Girls once a week, basically, in high school. I felt very lucky to be brought in. But again, he saw Thunder Road because I was a pen pal of his for 8 years prior, asking questions about how to grow in the film industry. And then he was like, "Oh, we need a cop to be in this thing," and Jim would do it. Just bring him down to Wilmington for a week. Let's like goof around with Jim. He's great, man.
That's so good. Jim's been a lot of cops. Jim can be a cop. That's I told Sean it was almost like it almost pulled me out of the movie because I've seen you as a cop twice now, and it's nowhere near the type of cop that I would assume would be in this sort of movie. But it's wonderful. Awesome. I want to wrap here with one final question. One of my favorite things about your films is your tangents or rants, and you've had a number of them, even just on this podcast. I've loved hearing you wax poetic about a number of things. Both of those have positive connotation. Tangents, rants, we have both of them.
Sure.
What are the keys to a good rant, to a good tangent or monologue, if you will, in a movie or in one of your movies when you're writing it?
I think you have to have distractions as well. Like you have to be thinking that people in the audience are thinking that this is so self-serious and that this is a monologue, and it's the writer, director who's also acting in, and he's trying to show off his chops or her chops. So like it's got to be humiliating. It's got to cost something to perform. It's got to be incredibly complicated. And then it's got to have bullshit injected into it that are distractions. Like in Thunder Road, in the feature, there's a moment where I recruit a member of the crowd to come up to help me fix the boombox that isn't working. And I'm talking to the crowd, and I'm like, "My mom was wonderful. Is it going to work? No, it's not going to work. Should we just call the manufacturer?" And I'm having a private conversation that is a complete non sequitur from what I'm also trying to do here. It's really funny. And I think you need to do that. Like, audiences would be so bored if it didn't have technical difficulties, like or giving somebody something. I have change in my pockets in this short, and I'm kind of like wrangling those around. It's just small things of like character things that are it's never just talking into the camera. It's like it's gotta be petty and stupid, and you can't get away with it. Just all of that fucking Mark Ruffalo, they knew and they let it happen kind of stuff is so earnest and austere. But I make comedies, and so like. To do that stuff, and he knocks over a bunch of papers and then has to, oh, sorry, hold on a second. And then he like has to get up and do like, that's so much more human and pathetic, and probably realistic of like how that actually seems,
It is exactly how I speak. I am a scatterbrain. Like it touches everything. So relatable. So 100%. Yes.
It's wonderful. And it's why we and so many people love your work. Jim, really appreciate the time. Like we said, excited to see whatever you got coming next, especially is now a good time. So thank you so much again for being on the show. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to our conversation with Jim Cummings. And thank you again to Jim for hanging out with us in his, if you're watching this on YouTube, in his lush backyard. Has a very lush backyard, it seems.
Nature.
We are going to do mostly horror recommendations of the week, but right now we need to talk about a movie that just came out. That's called The Strangers Chapter 1. And so for those who don't know, The Strangers original film came out in 2008. They then did a sequel film, The Strangers Prey at Night, in 2018, a decade later. And then Universal, or actually I think it's Lionsgate, thought, let's take this and turn it into a new trilogy. And 3-part trilogy. We're going to release, I think, 2 of them in 2024 and 1 of them in 2025. And all directed, I believe, by Rennie Harlin, who is known... he's known for... Which Nightmare on Elm Street did he do? He did Nightmare on Elm Street 4, I think. I should know this. Hold on. Give me 2 seconds. He did Nightmare on Elm Street, The Dream Master, so number 4. He did Die Hard 2. He did Deep Blue Sea. He did Exorcist: The Beginning. So this director's been around a bit and also knows a thing or two about taking a film that's already, had some background to it. But when I saw Strangers Chapter 1, I texted Sean and I said, Sean, I need you to watch this movie as soon as possible so we can talk about it. And it's not often that I need to write specifics down. If a film, we don't do a lot of like hardcore reviewing where we need to talk about very, very specific things. Mm-hmm. But if we do, we note it for interviews, whatever it may be. This film, I try not to use this phrase. I tried to say I didn't like it. This film is so bad that I started writing notes about how bad it is. Yeah. And it's not just that the entire film is in the trailer. Spoiler. If you want to go see The Strangers Chapter 1, go see it. We're going to talk all about it right now. So definitely skip this part, listen to our next episode, whatever it is. Or just go watch the 2008 film because it's no different. It's obviously different, but it is so bad. So obviously normal issues. Everything is shown in the trailer. There's almost nothing in the film that is not shown in the trailer. Nothing important that's not shown in the trailer. It's not just that it's poorly written. It's not just that the acting's not great. But there is no reason for this movie. Like, this is a major motion picture with zero reason for it. I've never seen a remake of a film that is almost identical without even trying to change things, unless it's like a Funny Game situation where they're like, yeah, we're just going to do an American version shot for shot. Same director.
Sure.
This movie is a hollow shell of what The Strangers is, the original Strangers is, without everything that Brian Bertino brought to the original film. There's specifics that we can talk about, but it just feels like the most embarrassing attempt at doing something, and it is so superficial and just perfectly, it's so blatantly obvious that this was merely a, the 3 characters in masks have an iconic look. Let's see how much we can squeeze out of that. Like, that is truly all that Lionsgate was probably thinking about. I obviously have specifics that we can get into. Give me your initial reaction. We haven't talked, besides me knowing you didn't like it. We haven't talked about it.
So did you come up with Hollow Shell on your own, or did you read my review? Did we both just feel the exact same way?
No, I did not. Like your Letterboxd review, I didn't see it.
Yeah, my Letterboxd review and the TikTok that I made.
Oh, that's
just
funny.
A little bit ago.
I don't have a TikTok, so yeah.
I think my exact words were, It is the empty, hollowed, money grabbing mimic shell of what Brian did in the first movie. I want just to kind of add to things you said. Yes, they basically just tell the same story and hit all the points, but they take out, like, there's no room for subtlety. They felt like they had to explain absolutely everything. They had to, like, tell you about the emotional arcs of, like, their, like, the marriage stuff, and they approach things from, like, a different perspective.
Yes.
And they are adding all of this other bullshit because they want to set up a trilogy. Like, that's the reason that this movie exists, is simply as a stepping stone to get to what else they want to tell. They didn't feel that they could go off of, like, do another sequel, canceling out Prey at Night and starting a trilogy based on the first one. They basically,
which, really quick, you can't do that. You can't make a movie without you feeling like it can stand on its own. Like, if you don't feel like your film can stand on its own, it's fine to have trilogy plans. It's fine to have future movies in mind. But if your film can't stand on its own, don't make the movie.
Yeah.
Sorry.
100%.
I had to interject.
No, 100%. 100%. It's to me, I'm going to say the same sort of things I said in the TikTok. I'm sure that there are people that worked on this film, creatives that worked on this film, that gave it their all. They showed up. They did
maybe the technical department.
Shit. I'm sure that there are great memories. Like, I'm not trying to take away from those people, but what I will say is literally none of that came through. And all that I got was the feeling of a studio that has the rights to a property and the rights to certain characters, and have been desperately trying to figure out how to milk that franchise for more money, which I think inherently goes against what the original movie is. So my blanket statement is I did not like it at all either, Steve. Then there's so many reasons why. Let me open the next part of the conversation. So we've talked about The Strangers a lot on our show, obviously, and tell me how you feel about this, but I think that one of the main powers and statements of that movie is it's a commentary on the chaos of life, and how sometimes shit just happens, and how violence is inherently a part of our nature, and how there has always been and always will be people like the Strangers. And overall, that movie is a whole experience. Our main characters are supposed to be able to be any of us. Where they are is supposed to be able to be anywhere. And the people behind the mask, most importantly, are supposed to be able to be anybody. And I guess I'll say that to both Prey at Night and to this movie and what they're doing with the trilogy, the odds are stacked against them, because I think the very nature of trying to revisit, retell, or expand upon this story and these characters goes against what made the original and the characters so strong in the first place. The Strangers and their mask are so powerful and iconic and memorable because of their anonymity.
Anonymity.
Yeah, I couldn't
It's
get the word out. I said it right earlier.
Anemone.
It's an anonymity. Dude, you should have heard me earlier trying to do it. But yeah, dude, the fact that you don't know who they are and you don't know why they're doing what they're doing is the strength of that movie. And it just drops you into a moment. You don't need a bunch of detail expressing who our protagonists are. You get enough, you feel like they're real people, and there's a lot of subtext that doesn't explain exactly their journey. Like, it's kind of like what Brian told us when we had him on the show. If it wasn't something that was going to happen naturally in that moment, if the characters wouldn't naturally say it, then it's not said. And if they wouldn't naturally learn this about the killers, then you wouldn't learn it. There's stuff you can read between the lines, and this movie just tries to we have to establish them and make you care about them and put all these uncomfortable, cheesy, lack of chemistry moments between them. Dude,
we'll get into those. I think
Go
so.
ahead.
I mean, specifically with that, the first movie succeeds, I think, well in the victim department, because there's already a bit of conflict going on there. It's not just like, this movie is very much like, two people that are in love go to a really weird city or a new town that they don't know, and everyone's looking at them weird because they're vegan and not married, and it feels like slightly religious and right wing, and then so they're already a bit intimidated, and then they stay at a cabin and people attack them. Like there's like it's just like good people. But like the other one, there's already this conflict. There's already this like reason for you to care about the characters because you're seeing this like normal human conflict that they're going through with like their marriage, as opposed to, you know, like the only conflict that these people are dealing with is like, oh, I'm gonna have to move to Oregon if I get this architectural firm job. This fucking woman can play the piano, smokes weed, and wants to work in an architectural firm. She's very well rounded.
All the killers can play the piano.
They all can play the piano, but let's go, you know, let's start at the beginning. Well, what were you going to say?
Okay.
I want to go through various parts of why this movie's not good.
We can definitely do that. I think you made me. I'll come back to it. I'm going to specifically comment on the small town thing, but you take us where you want to go, and I'll comment on the way.
The movie starts with a scene that is not mentioned the rest of the movie. A character that is not in the movie is in the scene, and it's a killing. And so here's the thing. They reference there was a killing before in this cabin, or there's a person that went missing. If that's the person, great. Also, the whole thing with the trailer is discover how the strangers became the strangers, as if it was their first thing. It's obviously not their first thing. They did it before with the person that lived at the cabin. There's no reason for that. It's a man running through the woods and he trips and he gets axed. Like, what are we doing? So that's what happens there. But then now, Sean, let me tell you, I didn't just overall not like this movie. There was a moment in this movie where I was like, oh, it's right at the beginning. There's text on screen, and the text on screen, I don't know the actual statistics, but it says every year in the United States, there's 14,000 violent crimes. That is one every 8 seconds. And then it says there have been 40 since you've been watching this film. And I was like, that is fun. I like that direct message to the people watching this movie. Like, that is like a fun thing that you can do to kind of set the tone for the film. And then it says this is the story of one of the most brutal. Let's just remember that this is supposed to be one of the most brutal violent crimes in America. Okay. Then we meet our protagonists, the girlfriend and boyfriend, who say nothing except for random sentences that you would normally get in any sort of like romantic comedy where there's conflict between a boyfriend and girlfriend. And almost immediately in the movie, we are hit with one of the most laughable product placements I have ever seen in my entire life. They're talking about the money that they have for moving or something. And the Madeline, whatever her name is in the movie, she goes, oh, I just checked my Ally app and it shows that my thing was deposited in it. It shows you the full Ally app with the Ally. It is from literally at that moment, I was like, oh, this is the type of shit that we're about to get into. Like, this is the low fucking bar that I'm going to have to climb over to watch this movie. So let's talk about product placement really quick. It's not rampant in the film, but there's the Ally thing. There's a couple of Budweisers. So there's a big Budweiser thing plastered on the main cafe in the small town. They buy Budweisers and you see them putting them in the fridge. But Sean, I don't know if you caught this. There's we're jumping around here, but we're touching on product placement. There is a moment where the main character smokes weed, gets attacked by the strangers, and then the strangers go away. And the boyfriend comes back and she says, I saw him. Oh my God, I was attacked. And he was like, okay. And he was like, were you smoking? And she was like, so? And he says, I told you that freak brother shit is strong. Sean, I don't know if you caught that. He says, I told you that freak brother shit is strong. Let me also preface this by saying I saw a screener version of this film. It was not final, I could tell, but I'm assuming all this stuff is in the final cut. He says that Freak Brother shit is strong. I wrote it down because I went, it's really weird that they would call out a vanity strain of weed in this movie for no reason. Like, I don't understand. But I looked at Google, I was like, Freak Brother weed. And all I could see was this like random collaboration between this animated show on like the Roku channel called Freak Brothers. That's like a Family Guy, but like about a dispo. And they did a collab like weed. And I was like, this doesn't like, why would they reference that? It's got to just be some random line that happens to make sense. After I finish watching this movie, I do my deep dive to try to figure out where the fuck it all went wrong. And I look at the people that created it. I'm so sorry. I'm normally not this mean, but
you're good, dude. It's shit.
The producers,
it's shit. And
producers and writers on this movie, specifically the writers. I'm trying to find the people that made this movie. There's 2 writers on this film, 3 writers on this film. Okay, 2. They count Brian Bertino. He created the characters. Alan Cohen and Alan Friedland. And I'm like, let's look and see what they've done. So they wrote Due Date, funny Robert Downey Jr. Zach Galifianakis road trip movie. They've produced and wrote some King of the Hill movies.
Oh.
Or not King of the Hill movies, King of the Hill episodes. They also created a Roku channel original show called Freak Brothers. So they literally are name dropping their own show's vanity weed strain in the middle of this supposed to be like dread inducing horror film. So that's the product placement that you deal with in this movie. I don't think there's any product placement in the original. I just want to throw that out there.
No, there isn't. Okay. Really quick. So I'm going to bounce around too. So yeah, that brings me to the point that overall this movie felt like it was trying to have fun. It was trying to have like in certain aspects, it was trying to be like a fun, modern-y, like kind of slasher, like the very like formula, whatever of that we're getting right now. Yes. And that's just not what this franchise is in every way. Well, not franchise. That's just not what the original story was, like what the tone was and what made it so great. And there's multiple ways that they just completely hit that mark. You were talking about how you specifically said that the couple talks about nothing. They say nothing, but and it's funny when you said that, I was like, they talk so much, and that's completely different than the original movie where they don't say much at all because they don't need to. Yeah. There's so much that throughout that whole movie, they don't have a ton of dialogue because it's not natural to have as much dialogue as they were having in the car on that ride. Like it felt like the original movie. And I'm going to keep referring to this, but the original movie feels like you're just seeing something that is naturally actually happening for a ton of reasons. Yep. And this felt like a movie where they're like, well, we have to establish our characters and show that they have this whatever lovable chemistry, which didn't work. I would say both due to writing and acting. Yeah. I feel like it's more writing and directing than anything.
I do think it is. It's heavily writing and directing.
Yes. I don't want to shit all over the actors.
Can I give you a line? Can I give you one of the lines? So while they're driving. Yeah. So to really make sure you understand the characters' relationship and what they're doing, the boyfriend, I don't know their names. The boyfriend says, "Oh, actually, no, sorry. The girlfriend says this to the boyfriend. Mm-hmm. I know how much the city means to you and what you're giving up, and I know you're doing it for me."
Yeah, let's dude, that's what there's no subtlety. No. There's no subtlety in this movie at all. They have to lay down
show
this
not
movie,
tell. Show not
dude,
tell.
Yes, this movie, dude, I felt insulted, not just as a Strangers fan, but also there's no faith in the audience at all to not only comprehend and think about what's going on and understand, but to feel. They just tell you like these are the emotional marks that you're supposed to feel and hit during this movie. These are the feelings you're supposed to have, and it's just insane. Like a perfect thing to do, I think, to learn how to write well would be to watch these two movies, watch the original and this just back to back, and try to understand all the things that Brian did masterfully that this movie just fucking ruins.
I will say Brian's really good in general at show not tell. Like all of his films, like, even though I like them to varying degrees, that is very much his style. A couple can I hit a couple other lines talking about the writing? Go. This one's in the trailer, but they're both sitting outside the cabin and the girlfriend says, "Did you hear that?" And he says, "What?" And she goes, "The silence." Which, like, come on, man, if that line's in your movie, just throw the movie away. They're talking about like how they both were under the impression that they didn't want to get married, and the girlfriend is like, "Well, I haven't said it since then, like 5 years ago." And the boyfriend goes, "Well, you never unsaid it."
Unsaid it.
And then one of my favorite lines in the entire movie, and I mean that in the worst way, is they're like getting comfy on the couch after they've gotten into this very idyllic cabin. And the girlfriend says, she says, "I think I know the state motto now. It's better in Oregon." And I literally paused the movie again, luckily watching it on a screener. And I was like, I don't understand why she would say that unless she like passed by a sign that says like, "Welcome to Oregon. It's better here," or something. Sure. And so I Google the Oregon state motto. And the state motto is a lot of state mottos are Latin, but this one is "Alice volat propries," which means she flies with her own wings. So that line was just for there was no reason. It doesn't make sense. It's like challenging my intelligence to even hear that. It was just so absolutely insane. So that was writing wise, those were the insane things I wanted to mention to you.
Sure. Well,
dialogue
specifically
writing.
Like dialogue writing. Yeah, man, it's really quick to talk about the writing and to talk about sort of like setting the stage like they did and ways that I think that they completely missed the mark. I want to go back to, you talked about there's cheap things. There's like they have no faith in the audience with the emotional things that like we were just talking about. But to go back to the opening scene, you have to have a thrilling moment right at the beginning, even though it has no contextual. Yeah, it has no relevance. Maybe I guess you're setting up something for the other ones. I don't know. But basically what you needed to do was be like, well, remember, or just so you know, this is the kind of movie you're coming to see, and this is what they do.
You got to show them the masks off the bat.
Yep.
Don't bore us.
We got to turn the heat up. Yep. Turn the heat up really quick. So, before, no faith that you can start a movie naturally. And also that the power from the original movie is kind of having a normal situation, a fairly normal situation with normal people, a normal couple going through something, but being normal and then having that unwind on them. But also to go back to other things I was saying, the whole point of The Strangers is to make you feel unsafe in your spaces. That, again, this could be you. It can happen to you anywhere that you are by anybody. And this new movie, to go to what you said about like right-wing conservative-y town, it flips the narrative of like people coming into your space and you went into the wrong town. It's just a whole different, less intense fear, in my opinion. It's completely flipping what that story is. And I'm sure that it's going to play into what we learn about these characters. It's like, this whole town's kind of fucked up and the sheriff is one of their dads or some stupid shit.
I know, like, I think they've said, like, you don't find out who the strangers are, but you find out who Tamara is, or like, why.
Yeah, why?
Yeah.
Tamara doesn't even need to be real.
No, Tamara doesn't need to be real. They also didn't need to say, "Is Tamara home?" They also didn't need to say, "Because you were here," which is...
it's going to take me to the next thing I want to say. This movie it's another perfect example of a movie. I've talked about this with a couple other things. I can't think about exactly. With Halloween, the newer Halloweens does this, where it is trying to do this juggling act of being like, well, we want to start the fire on a new franchise and we want to grab young listeners. So how do we do that? We play pop music. We follow all these trends. We absolutely tell them how to feel because they're not intelligent enough to pick up
Short
on any
attention
more
spans.
subtle writings. Yeah, short attention spans, which is also in how we edit. We have to edit our scares in instead of writing them well. Like the tension has to be built solely through music and editing and jumps instead of, the beautiful, slower things that happen in the original. But it's filled with these references that, like, to the original that are only there to be references. They had to have the two little Mormon boys, but make them creepy little
For no
kids
reason.
because a horror movie loves, for literally no reason. In the original, they're a narrative device to kind of connect the beginning and the end and to show a duality, between the violence that just happened and this innocence and these ideas of innocence, little children, concepts of faith coming, like it's a whole different thing. And in this, they're just like, no, well, they're little kids, so they're creepy little kids, and we'll have them looking weird and being a part of this weird town that everyone just stares at.
Also,
them.
one of them has an accent. I don't know if you caught that. One of them definitely.
Yeah,
has an,
it was.
Anyways,
I can't remember what he said. He said a weird super. Are you Sanders or something? I can't remember how he did it. But yeah, and it's filled with stuff like that, like the Joanna Newsom moment. They had to play Sprout and the Bean, and with completely different. I don't know, dude. It's just, it was wild to watch this movie and be like, you guys have no clue. You're unable to commit to a vision, and you just have these obligatory things that you need to do. You have to have your product placement. You have to have your ways that you're trying, and I would assume unsuccessfully, to connect to younger audiences, and you have to try to appease the fans of the original by showing that imagery from it and using it completely incorrectly. Dude,
they didn't get the original. They didn't understand why the original was so successful. But I feel it's so funny because, again, it's not just that they didn't get the original. It's not just that everything was shown in the trailer. There's just some weird fucking stuff, just dumb stuff in this movie. Like, there's a motorcycle at this cabin, and so the boyfriend knows how to ride a motorcycle, which the girlfriend doesn't even know. It's just like a really random. They're like, oh, you know how to ride a motorcycle? Yeah. He rides the motorcycle into town to go get a vegan burger, and everyone looks at him weird because vegans are weird. And he rides his motorcycle back, and their car's in the shop. That's why they're stuck at the cabin. You guys need to know that. And so when they're at the cabin and they get attacked, they're like, we should escape. The motorcycle's outside. And when they run outside, the motorcycle simply explodes. And
he throws a gas can, and it still doesn't make sense.
It just explodes, and then you see Potato Sack Head guy. What's his name? Sackman.
Sackhead, I don't know.
You see,
Brian didn't super lock it in.
You see him, as if he was like, "Fuck yeah, I just did that." Like, but the motorcycle just straight up explodes. Later on in the movie, also because this movie, I guess, is the Goonies. One of the main characters has an inhaler, and that's like a narrative device for the whole movie. It's like a big part of it, and.
Which you could feel coming the second you saw it.
Of course,
it wasn't natural at all.
It's anytime you see an inhaler in a movie now, unless they do it really well, it's
someone's gonna need it later.
And so this is another thing where I didn't get it when I was watching it, and I looked it up and I said that's not a thing. There's a part in the movie where he can't find his inhaler and he's being chased, and he finds a water bottle, and he twists the water bottle to force air into it and then breathes it in.
Yeah. Is that real?
No.
Can you
I looked for quite some time to see if that's a real thing. And I think, again, and listeners, if you know that would work, let me know. I'm pretty sure there's medicine in inhaler. I think inhalers are a specific type of medicine.
Yes, it's not just air.
You
it's
could
not just
take your fucking keyboard cleaner and do that shit if you needed to. So that is just another way that this film is insulting your just. I was just like, there's no way that is like that. It is so. This movie, I wrote this down. This movie felt like Peekaboo for adults. That's what it felt like the whole time. It was just like, they're just like, people are here.
Honestly.
Now they're here.
Yep.
Nope, now they're here.
And
Nope, now they're here. Nope, they're here now. They're grabbing you behind the
Dude.
window.
Yes. They don't know it. There was no control whatsoever of that tension. No. Like it, I don't know how to explain it. There rises and falls in that roller coaster emotional journey that you're supposed to be having. Adrenaline journey just isn't there. Like it's so out of whack. The beats are all off. And yeah, the peekaboo thing just made, dude. Can we talk a little bit about the actual like filming of it, some of the camera stuff that they do? Did you think it was weird that every single shot had to be like it was all of these speaking directly to someone like this face? Do you know what I'm talking about? Did that seem goofy to you?
I don't think I recognize what you're talking about.
How did
I watched it on a smaller screen than you did. I don't know if that. I mean, I watched it on my computer. I guess. You watched it in a theater,
dude. So much of their talking, like, and especially like, and in these intense moments, it's like there's a slight distortion to the camera, like it's slightly a wide angle, and it's all of these like close-ups to each other's face to like, I guess, hint at intensity and like in speaking to each other.
Just like, dude, it's just shorthand when you don't know how to like it.
Holy
it's
shit!
Just like,
it was so
it's
goofy,
a cheat, basically, to make you feel like you're, you feel more. About
they cheated incorrectly. It did not work. It felt silly, and it made you so aware, like from how much and how weird the editing and the pacing was to those camera angles. It made it feel so much more like a movie, where again, Brian's feels like an experience.
Yeah.
I'm shocked that you didn't.
I was focusing on too many other things.
Sure.
One last thing to mention. Again, like we said, this movie is basically just beat for beat ripping off the original
but terribly.
Yes, from the writing, on like the things that the strangers do, the writing on the walls, to the way that it ends, tying them up because you were here instead of because you were home, all the same stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end, when they're tied up, Sean, I get teary-eyed when I see proposals sometimes. And the lead character, I should really know their names. The boyfriend turns to the girlfriend and he asks her, "Will you marry me?" before he's stabbed to death.
Yeah.
It is just, again, so laughable and so like it's just pointless. This is just the perfect example of a pointless movie. I very rarely feel like a movie shouldn't have been made, and this is one of those rare examples. And it's sad that we've gotten two types of these movies, one last year and one this year. But what I can ask for is that this film will get the Exorcist believer treatment.
Yeah.
I know that probably won't happen. This is a lower budget film. There's already a second movie slated to come out later this year.
Yeah.
And I don't have hope, but maybe it'll go straight to streaming and we'll be lucky.
Sure. I have to watch them. I'm going to have to watch them just to see like how far off they go. The believer thing is complicated because it didn't just get shut down. Like Mike is taking over.
Yes.
Where I would rather see this. I don't think, again, to go back to what I was saying about the strength of the original and these characters, I think that the odds are against them in the sense that while I'm usually pro remakes and reboots, The Strangers is just a really hard one to touch on again. Yeah. I think that the power of it is for it to be this singular experience that your imagination then builds around. Yeah. Like you don't need to know. It's better to not know where they came from or where they're going. So yeah, to any sequels or prequels, ruin that. And then to remake it is also impossible because they just did it. Brian did it right the first time. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need a different tone. So yeah, I don't know. I guess really quick, lastly, I want to say that while I do blame most of the writing or most of it on the writing and the directing and stuff, they're just the emotional things that they do. You talked about that moment. Her fear and the way that they kind of like panic for a second and then just immediately recoup. Liv Tyler, like the stress that Liv Tyler takes you on in that movie and again, that's not all just her. Like, that's the directing and the writing. I don't know who to blame, but I just want to say that whether it's the actor's faults or whoever's faults it is, the performances in this movie are also just they don't make sense, and they don't take you on that journey. And yeah, the end of the original Strangers, because they're not in the original, they're not married, but they had went to a wedding, and then he proposed to her in the parking lot, and even then he couldn't say it. Like, the whole, like, a lot of Brian, like, you don't hear him say it, and I think there's like a power to that takes away the cheesiness from it. But their whole conflict is that she said no, and you don't see her say no, but that's what's hinted at the beginning. Like, once they get to the cabin, there's the tension is that she couldn't say yes, she's just not ready, but she still loves him and wants to be with him. And at the end of it, it's kind of hinted, and through like the way that they're interacting with each other, that she is saying yes to him finally, you know, like in her last moments, and it works the way Brian does it. But in this, they have to spell it out. And so, yeah, I just wanted to, because you brought it up, and I wanted to say the thing is that Brian did do that, but he just did it the right way.
Subtlety is key.
Subtlety is key.
Not tell. You got.
Yeah.
Again, it works for.
There's
reasons.
So much more we could say.
There is. I think the best way to wrap this up, though, is that you just got to remember it's better in Oregon, and that's
and it's better when Brian
does
it.
Brian does it. Shout out to Brian Bertino. I'm glad your name is still big in the credits.
I'm not. I wish.
I hope he got some semblance. Well,
I hope he got. I hope he got paid.
Yeah.
As long as Brian got his.
Brian got his back. On that note, mostly horror Rex. I got 2 albums to recommend. I don't know if you have anything.
I got a little something. It's
but I'm very happy because Donald Glover, aka Childish Gambino, announced a world tour that will be stopping at Barclays Center twice in August with Willow. Wait a minute.
Yo.
Yes.
Get those
yes.
Okay.
And he so Childish Gambino, aka Donald Glover, released an album a little while back called 3/15/20. I think it might have come out on 3/15/20. It felt very like demo-y.
Okay. In a fun way? Like,
it was just raw. It was just like really raw feeling.
Sure.
It was fine.
Okay.
And but then after that, he didn't put out any new music, but he did have some songs in various things. So like he probably released songs for like sync rights so they could be in commercials and movies and whatever. Those songs, a lot of those songs are now on this new album called Ada Vista. Excuse me. It's not Because the Internet Gambino, where he's rapping. It's very much like Summertime Magic. Not like Red,
which I love.
Yeah, not like Redbone, like eccentric style, but closer to like Summertime Magic, which I love as well. Or like Kauai, like that EP. It's a lot of singing, but he like there's a song Littlefoot Bigfoot, which again it's been in like TV shows and commercials and stuff. It just has a lot of good tracks on it, so definitely want to recommend that. The music video for Littlefoot Bigfoot is also really good, as his music videos are known to be. So would definitely recommend that. And then on the polar opposite side of the spectrum, something that I've talked about at length is the new Knocked Loose music, and their record You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To is finally out. It is earth-shatteringly heavy. The singles are obviously wonderful. The song with Poppy, Suffocate, slaps. Blinding Faith is great. Don't Reach For Me is great. But the whole album just flows, and it's all like it's almost like a horror score. Like there's shit. It's just like dark as fuck.
Okay.
And it's wonderful. It's my favorite thing that they've done. It's just so good. So
awesome.
Absolutely want to recommend that. And we're also going to go see them in 12 days, as we're recording.
Holy
this.
Shit.
So don't forget that.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, definitely forgot that. Or wasn't thinking about that, I should say. We will post a picture of Steve's elbows and all of the wind burn that are on them from how much he's been throwing them since he's been listening to the album.
Fucking going at it.
I got an album as well. It's an old one. It's an oldie, but for some reason the other night I just decided. I think I saw something talking about like hip hop albums that deserve like prestigious awards, and I saw like a video of some girl basically discrediting it. Either way, I ended up listening to Mad Villainy
MF Doom
by MF Doom. Yeah, dude. And have you listened to that album? I didn't know that Doom was super on your
It's
radar.
not a common. It's not like a. It's probably not on my liked songs, but I've definitely listened to. Especially when he passed not too long ago. I like went through his music. Definitely good, just not like repeatable listening for me, I think.
Sure, totally get that. And I've obviously listened to like a good amount of Doom, but I realized that I had never really sat down and listened to like an album from beginning to end, which I thought was weird. Mad Villainy is fucking awesome, and I absolutely loved it. And the other thing is, this is a definitely a week where I haven't been watching many movies. We were prepping some other stuff, episodes that are coming up. I've been looking at more books, things like that. But a thing I have been doing on breaks in between things is I finally re-jumped into Breath of the Wild and like got hooked this time. And dude, if you have not played Breath of the Wild yet, you should absolutely do that.
Until all your weapons break all the time.
Listen, dude, it's that is a little bit that is annoying.
So annoying.
It's especially annoying at the beginning, but you get to a point where you can increase your inventory. B, you're just getting better at combat and you're collecting a lot of things on the way, and the weapons you're getting are stronger and last a bit longer. Yeah. And you just have to kind of get through like a bit of an annoying period with that, but it ends up being okay. It's not my favorite element of the game, but the game is so beautiful and huge, and there's so much going on, and I'm so invested at this point that it is a minor inconvenience in comparison.
It put me off of finishing the
I
game.
Get it.
It's so fucking frustrating.
The thing is, I had started to play the game like 2 other times, and it wasn't that was frustrating, but it was mainly that it's so open, and it's unlike other Zelda games where, you've always been able to go all over the place, even if it was an open world, but you kind of had to do things in a specific order. And in this one, there's so much to do, and the map is so large, and it's still recommended you do things in a certain order without telling you what that order is.
It's like Skyrim.
So I got lost a lot, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I had restarted it recently and just committed, and now I'm like deep in it and loving it. So,
nice. That is
that's where we're at.
That's good. That's fun. On that note, have you seen The Strangers Chapter 1? Let us know. Send us an email, mostlyhorrormovienight@gmail.com. If you've made it this far, find us on Instagram or threads at mostlyhorrorpod. Send us because you were home. Send us a DM that says because you were home. We've had some people sending us DMs. I've enjoyed it. And have forgotten, because we record these episodes ahead of time, have forgotten that I asked. So we got like a gorilla emoji
just confused
a couple of days ago, and I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, oh, we talked about Kingdom. Ape Stronger Together. But we'll talk about that next week. We'll talk about that next week. You can also find us on Twitter at Mostly Horror. I'm everywhere at Steven is Average. Sean's everywhere at Hypocrite Inc. or Hypocrite.Inc. That's all we got for you this week. We'll catch you next time.
Goodbye.